everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about how I learned Korean, from how I started to learn to where I am now. And just a little disclaimer, this is how I learned. Everyone's journey is going to be a little different, and I don't expect you to do everything I did or whatever. You gotta find what works for you. But I wanted to tell you my story, and now that that's out of the way, tell me in the comments how you got to where you are in your Korean language journey. I'd love to chat with you about it. And if you would like to hear me speak Korean, I've made a few videos of me speaking Korean, so I will link them down below. Okay, so let's just get right into it. Let's start from the very beginning to how I got started. I can't really remember the exact dates or years, so my timeline might be a little off from what it actually is, but I'll try my best to tell you it correctly. So let's start with how I even got introduced to Korean at all. Me being a young teenager, back in the day, I would spend a lot of my time on the internet, and YouTube was a part of that. And I remember one night I was watching this random kung fu video. I don't know why, but you know how it goes, you know where you end up on YouTube at 3 a.m. It's strange. So I was watching a kung fu video, and then on the suggested, recommended for you side, there was this really colorful and bright. There were a bunch of girls, or one girl, I don't remember, and it was so intriguing, so I clicked on it. So it turned out that was a K-pop video. It was Girls' Generation. Oh, that was my first K-pop song I've ever heard. Now, don't get mad at me, but I think when I first watched the video, I kind of just assumed they were Japanese because it was super cutesy, super bubblegum, the vibe. Apparently I didn't know much about Japan either, if that's what I thought, but I just assumed they were Japanese in the beginning. But you know how YouTube is. Once you click on a video, they will start suggesting you similar videos, so I went down this Girls' Generation rabbit hole. I only listened to Girls' Generation at the time, and I listened to O, G, Run Devil Run, their first song, Intro to a New World, and I was hooked. It was amazing. I don't know why I liked it so much. Maybe because it was different. Maybe because it was super girly and I was super girly. I don't know. After weeks of watching the videos over and over and over and sort of obsessing over Girls' Generation, I finally found out they were Korean. I was like, oh, they're not Japanese, they're Korean. So I was walking into the step in the right direction of not assuming they were Japanese. Even though I found out they were Korean, still at that point, I did not want to learn the language. I was barely passing Spanish in school, and I was like, this is just too much, and I cannot add another language. A few years go by, I already started listening to other K-pop groups. My all-time favorite girl group was FX, rest in peace Sully, and I started listening to who else? Brown Eyed Girls, Kara, oh, rest in peace Hara, that's so sad. Oh, it just got really sad. Yeah, I also listened to Tiara, who else? Some boy groups, Shiny, oh, and oh god, I just got sad. A few years passed. I listened to a lot of music all the time, and then I was introduced to my first K-drama, and the only reason I watched it was because my favorite girl group, a member, was in that show. Sully, she was in To the Beautiful You, and I love that show. I was hooked, and that was the first time I actually heard the language being spoken by regular people instead of being sung, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a pretty language. And so that's when I started to want to learn the language. I was like, yeah, I gotta learn it. It's so pretty. So I started to learn from YouTube and free websites. Just a little bit, the alphabet and a few phrases. It was very basic, absolute beginner level, but I still had fun while I was doing it. And it was so rewarding when I'd learn a word and then I'd hear it in a Korean drama. Oh, my brain exploded from excitement. And I remember just being so proud to learn Korean, and I would tell all of my friends and all of my family, and they would just be so impressed, dang, that's cool. And I'm like, yeah, it is cool. So my mom, being the supportive woman she is, she got me Rosetta Stone, the Korean version, And you kids are lucky now, because before, I remember Rosetta Stone being like a disc, like a CD that you would have to put in your computer, and you can only pick one language at a time. Oh my god, it was a mess, but I was still so excited to use it. But now that it's 2021, we have mobile apps now. Now you can buy a Rosetta Stone membership and have access to all of the languages that they offer. Rosetta Stone is a language learning app that helps people master the basics in their desired language. So in our case, it's Korean. It's a much more entertaining way to learn Korean rather than solely relying on like a grammar book. It's an interactive app that has all the necessary features of a language learning course, like reading, listening, speaking. When I first began to learn Korean, back in the day, it was a great way to sort of ease myself into the language without feeling overwhelmed. I also was attending school at the time, so I was grateful that it wasn't so difficult and that it was something fun that I look forward to. Also, Rosetta Stone has a speech recognition software which helps with your pronunciation. They didn't have that back in the day, so that's a major plus. For those of you with very little Korean language knowledge, Rosetta Stone is a great place to start and build a solid foundation to prepare you for your language journey. So if you're interested in getting Rosetta Stone, use my link in the description to get a discount on their monthly subscription or on the lifetime subscription. And thank you, Rosetta Stone, for sponsoring my video. I really appreciate it. I want to say it took me about a year to get through the old school Rosetta Stone, the CD disc or whatever, and I felt like I had a really good grasp of basic vocabulary. It taught me a lot of vocab, not that much grammar, but I think I prefer learning vocabulary in a new language rather than jumping into grammar, so that was good. And after I finished that, I wanted to learn more, but I didn't know how. So for a couple years, I was sort of just stuck. I wasn't really learning new things because I didn't know what to do. I still continue to watch a lot of Korean dramas. Like, if you want a video on my favorites, I can do that because I've got a lot. And I also listened to a lot of Kpop at the time, so I was still hearing it often, which I think helped with my listening comprehension down the road. So even if you feel like you don't have the resources to study now, just watch some movies, watch some shows. I think that helps quite a bit, and you pick up little vocabulary words here and there. And then eventually I tried to find like a pen pal or like a language exchange partner, and that was a bad idea because when I did find a pen pal, I found myself using Google Translate most of the time because I didn't know any grammar, and my knowledge just wasn't high enough to keep up with the other person. And then when I'd find a language exchange partner where we'd like video chat, we would only speak in Korean for like 5 minutes and then like the rest of the hour in English because I didn't know anything past like greetings and simple stuff like what's your hobby or whatever. So eventually I had to stop that because it wasn't beneficial for me at the time, which is fine, but I'm glad I was brave enough to get on a video chat with a stranger because me now, I could never. So time goes on and I graduate high school and I'm like, I'm free. And one of the first things I do is I got 2 part-time jobs because I was determined to visit Korea and pay for it on my own. So I saved up every penny I made from my part-time jobs and I took me and my sister to Korea for the first time back in 2017, and it was amazing. It was so much fun, but for some reason I was just way too confident in my skills. But when I got to Korea, reality smacked me really hard in the face and it made me realize, oh, you know nothing and you were just confident for no reason. What? And I think part of that confidence was because no one around me was Korean, so when they'd ask me to speak Korean, they were like, oh my gosh, that's freaking amazing. So they sort of like made my head bigger than what it should have been. But, that's okay. I'm glad I had a supportive group around me or whatever. But I was a little disappointed in myself because I was learning for years and years and I couldn't get past the basic greetings and simple conversations. Like when I was at restaurants, I couldn't even properly order. I had to like point at the menu, like sort of guess what it is. But it was fine. I think if you have very little knowledge of Korean, you could get by in Korea, but definitely learn a little. So then I stayed in Korea. We stayed for about almost 4 weeks, almost a month. It was quite a long time. And then I returned back to the US and I started working again, and I was saving every penny again because I was determined to go back to Korea, but this time I wanted to go to a Korean language school. I wanted to get into one, and it turns out a year later, 2018, I did. I got into Seoul University's Korean Intensive Language Program, and it was so much fun. I took levels 1 and 2, and I think that would put me at a lower intermediate or like upper beginner. So I think I'm like right there. But I think if I were to do it again, I want to go with a different program, find something a bit more flexible, maybe something I could do for like 5 weeks instead of 10, you know. I was checking out EF study abroad, EF language thing. They have them in like a bunch of different countries. I also want to go to Costa Rica to learn Spanish and maybe Munich to learn German. But they have one in Korea as well. They are kind of expensive, but they are really flexible. So you could like do it for 2 weeks, or you could do it for a year, which I think I like, so I might try it out. I also realized after attending Sogang and then coming back home, I realized I learned best in a classroom setting with other students and teachers there to help motivate me. Because once I came back, I can't study by myself. Like, I can't sit down and learn by myself. I need someone to tell me what to do. I need someone to give me homework. I need classmates to practice with. I also don't like the one-on-one tutoring sessions. I will do it once in a while for practice, but I couldn't do it long term because I hate when all the attention is on me. I like having other students that the teacher could pay attention to, or to sort of just talk to and relate to. Do you know what I mean? Like 2020, you know, sort of a messed up year, and I just lost all motivation to study Korean, so I didn't, which is really bad because if you don't use it, you lose it. Oh my god, and boy did I lose it. Like, I just did a video 2 weeks ago of me struggling to make complete sentences, but you know, it was better than I expected. So now, in 2021, I am going back to relearn everything I learned before, and I've got quite a simple study routine, so that might come soon. That video might come soon. And because it's easy, like I've already learned it, I'm sort of just speeding through and it's motivating. So hopefully when it's safe to travel again, I will be able to go to Korea to continue my learning, because I would like to call myself fluent one day, which I am not. So that is where I am now. That is how I learned Korean, and I would love for you to tell me how you learned. I think it'd be really interesting to read, so let's have a chat in the comments, and thank you for watching my video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!